the internet, my name is Sisley. Welcome back to Sisley Reacts, the channel where I react to music related stuff. And today we are continuing our year-end music chart videos, and this is going to be the third installation, which is going to be all about albums. I am going to list my top 10 favorite albums of 2017, plus some honorable mentions because there were just so many I couldn't fit them all in the top 10, and I don't want to leave any masterpieces out, you know. And I don't know whether it's just me, and due to the fact that I have a reaction channel now, I've just been listening to a lot more music than I usually do. And I listen to a lot of music, so like listening to more music than I usually do means listening to incredible amounts of music. This year has been really diverse for me when it comes to music. I mainly reside in the pop genre and like the branches of it, like electronic pop or pop rock or country pop, if you will, because most of these albums are going to be pop albums. I feel like it's still been a diverse year with lots of different music, like loads of different music. So without further ado, let's get into my top 10 favorite albums of 2017. At number 10 we have Witness by Katy Perry. Now, shush, I don't want to hear any of your bullshit about how that album is trash, because it's not, and if you think so, you probably haven't listened to it. No, seriously, everybody's allowed to think whatever they want, but that album has one of the most relevant lyrics, probably the most experimental production that Katy Perry has ever done, and I'll be honest, I can't stand the slander that Katy's getting now. Like, I know that some people just need to have somebody to drag or they will not survive in this harsh, cruel world that is 2017, but like, come on, Witness deserves some justice. Like, it was a good, solid album that had lots of good songs, and most importantly, they stuck in my head for months. Like, this was not my most listened to album of the year at all, but even after I've gone without listening to that album for a couple months, I just kept getting songs from that album stuck in my head, and you know what that means? That probably means that the songs are good. My favorite songs from the album are Mind Maze, Pendulum, Swish Swish, and Roulette. I also really like Tsunami, I Miss You More Than I Loved You, and like that entire album is just really solid, and I just can't stand the hate that it's getting. And to be honest, this album didn't even get justice from me because I didn't give it nearly enough listens and attention, because it deserves way more. Okay, that's enough controversial opinions for today. Let's move on to number 9. At number 9 we have Flicker by Niall Horan. Now, this album came out really recently, but I mean, I've already listened to it a ridiculous amount of times, and I just love the overall vibe. I think I mentioned it before in the album reaction maybe, that while I love all the One Direction boys solo stuff, Niall is the one whose style I love the most. It resonates with me the most, and it's just like the softest, sweetest thing ever. And that entire album is filled with beautiful acoustic guitars and soft pianos and just beautiful songwriting in general. I think Niall is just very great at producing heartwarming acoustic songs, even though my favorite song from the album is On My Own, which is far from just like a soft and mellow acoustic song for your average winter evening. On My Own is literally the most fierce song ever, and I have a lot of favorites from that album. Paper Houses is probably my second favorite because it's so dramatic and almost heartbreaking, and then Flicker is just like tears all over the place. I literally cried after the first time listening to the song. And Seeing Blind is actually another one of my favorites because I just love the harmonies in that one, and the chorus is really powerful. At number 8 we have Reputation by Taylor Swift, an album which I did not expect to put into my yearly favorites at all before it came out. But I mean, there's a reason Taylor Swift is that popular. Her music is good, and she delivered with this album. There were tracks that I wasn't a fan of, and I'm still not the biggest fan of, but the songs that are good are so good that I can't get them out of my head. I can't stop replaying them, and I mean, she is a brilliant songwriter, as I mentioned multiple times before, and when she does it right, she does it goddamn fucking right. My favorite songs from that album are Getaway Car, King of My Heart, This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things, and New Year's Day. And like, those are my top favorites. I really love The Dress, I love Delicate, I love Ready For It, I love Gorgeous. Like, there are tons of songs on that album that are really great. And even Call It What You Want is growing on me, even though like I wasn't the biggest fan originally when I heard it as a pre-single. Like, even if your first impression of that album was like half good, kind of like mine was, when you give it a second or a third listen, it's definitely gonna grow on you, because these songs are just that kind of song, whether you want it or not. At number 7 we have Lorde's Melodrama. I was blown away by Lorde's singles and pre-singles before the album came out, and there were lots of pleasant surprises there. And then when the album came out, I was like, it's impossible to say how blown away I was by that piece of art, because it's probably the most conceptually interesting album that I've heard this year, maybe aside from Blue Lips by Tolo. But like, Melodrama is a conceptual masterpiece. It has so many layers. The songs are so amazing, both by themselves and as an entire story, because if anything, they really do tell a story, both musically and lyrically, and just overall conceptually. Lorde produced this album with Jack Antonoff, and if you know me, you know that Jack Antonoff is my hero. I love him so much. I love his style of production, and Melodrama is just like such a multi-layered experience. My favorite songs from Melodrama were Velour, Supercut, and Perfect Places, even though all of them were amazing. And I just adore the picture that the album paints, the topics that are being covered, basically how melodramatic it is. No wonder it's called Melodrama. I just live for that drama in music and that angst that is not just like shallow, edgy for the sake of being edgy angst, but like actual, genuine human emotion that comes from the deepest depths of us as humans. And I just love Melodrama, both as an album and as an art piece. At number 6, we have Pink's Beautiful Trauma. This was one of the most anticipated releases for me this year. When I found out about it, I was like, holy shit, Pink is releasing something new. Oh my god, this is the best fucking year ever. Because I love Pink so much. She's one of my favorite artists of all time. And Beautiful Trauma just delivered. It had tons of amazing songs. My favorites were definitely Beautiful Trauma and I Am Here, even though Barbie's really stuck with me as well. And especially from a lyrical perspective, it was a lot more existential than any other Pink song that I've ever heard before. And I haven't listened through her entire catalog, but I have listened to Funhouse and The Truth About Love, and compared to that, this new album is very existential in terms of like, you know, growing older and just like basically starting to wonder, you know, like what happens after that, you know, like what happens when life ends. And it delved into a lot deeper topics that I think I've ever heard from Pink, and that's something that really captured my attention. But of course, in a lot of songs, she still managed to be her usual playful and quirky self, especially in Revenge. That was a fun song. And once again, I feel like this album was really underrated while being truly one of the best albums of the year. Well, no wonder it's in my top 10. All of these albums I consider the best albums of the year. At number 5, we have Ed Sheeran's Divide album. Now, I remember the first singles came out in January, and I was like, this is going to be the best release of the year. Well, it turns out it's not the best release of the year, but definitely one of the best releases of the year for me personally. I fell in love with Ed Sheeran's music way too late, to be honest, but I still absolutely fell in love with it regardless. And when Divide came out, it fulfilled all of my expectations, all of my wishes. It was just the perfect Ed Sheeran album. It had so many beautiful songs. Of course, my favorites were the bonus tracks, interestingly enough. Basically, my top 3 was obviously Barcelona, Bibia Beyeye, and Nancy Mulligan, because these were all heavily folk influenced when being titled Barcelona, and it's like about going to Barcelona, and it's obviously going to be infused with a little bit of Spanish rhythms and vibes. And Bibia Beyeye was of course written and composed in South Africa and had a lot of music influences from that. And then Nancy Mulligan was a very, I don't know whether it was like Irish or Scottish or whatever that folk style is. I am not very educated on that, but that was once again a very folky song, and I'm always a hope for that. Also, aside from the amazing singles, I really loved What Do I Know, because I just relate to the lyrics of that song so much. I mean, it's literally about, you know, like, music can save the world, and my dreamy romantic ass self always believes in that and dreams about that and whatnot. So that was right up my alley, and just the entire album was very well rounded while being very diverse, and I just really love Ed Sheeran's music and his writing style, and this album was incredible. At number 4, we have the iconic, the incredible Kesha with her newest album, Rainbow! Rainbow was a fucking gift from the gods, or rather Kesha herself, which I mean, she is a god, but like, it was so her, but at the same time, it was so different from everything that she's done before. It was so much more personal, but at the same time, it was still very playful, very quirky, and very her. I mean, first of all, that album was titled Rainbow, which me. Second of all, it has the song Rainbow, which is also very me. As I mentioned in my top 25 songs of 2017, I haven't related to a song like this in years. Then I mean, there's a song titled Woman, which is literally our motherfucking woman, baby, that's right. I mean, what can be better than just like scream and dance to that? And of course, her lead single Praying just like blew everyone off their seats, left everyone wigless, because it was just like one of a kind, you know, like there haven't been songs like that ever. Like, this is such a unique take and such a powerful song, and I mean, like, every single song from that album, including friggin' Godzilla, is truly a masterpiece. I love Rainbow, I love Kesha. She continues to be one of my favorite artists of all time. I admire her strength, and I just can't help but be proud of her because she came back like a boss, rose out of the ashes like a phoenix, and she's rocking it. At number 3, we have an album that I undoubtedly thought that was going to be my favorite album of the year when the first single was released. It's Gone Now by Bleachers! And I mean, by now this is expected because Jack Antonoff is my hero. I love his music, I loved Steel Train, I loved Fun, I love Bleachers, I love his production style, I love how he has evolved, and Gone Now is once again such a beautiful album conceptually, and it's a deeply personal album to Jack, as far as I know from his interviews, and musically it's just everything that I could have ever wanted. I love how Jack crafts his sounds and how he layers his sounds and just basically everything about his production process, at least from what I've seen from like the videos that he's done for like news outlets or websites or stuff like that, where he shows how he made certain songs from his albums. I'm just amazed every single time because it just seems magical how he comes up with sounds and how he layers them. And I could just go on and on about this all day, but I mean, you just have to listen to Gone Now, and then go listen to Bleachers' first album, Strange Desire, and then come back to me, and then we can talk about how amazing Jack Antonoff's production is. And of course, not only is he a brilliant producer, but also an amazing songwriter, and I just love his lyrics, the way that he expresses his emotions through a song, and it's just like, Gone Now was definitely one of the best albums that I've heard this decade, probably. And I already know that it's gonna be timeless, and I'm gonna go back to it again and again and again and again, even years later. At number 2, we have something that I totally, absolutely did not expect. I did not see it coming. Even when I heard the first single from this album, I absolutely did not see it coming, you know? It is Desire by Hertz. I think I mentioned it briefly in my top 25 songs of 2017 video, but I haven't always been a big fan of Hertz. I never disliked them, I just wasn't really into them that much. And while I absolutely fell in love with their first single from this era, Beautiful Ones, I still wasn't that hyped about their album because like I was obviously going to listen to it, but like, you know, I wasn't that excited just from hearing like one good song. But then they released another single from their album, and then they released another pre-single from their album, and then over the last few weeks before the release of their album, they released a couple of snippets on Twitter, and by that point I was like, holy shit, this album will be amazing. And boy, I wasn't wrong. This is my second favorite album of the year. I totally did not see it coming, but when I started playing that album, I knew that I was gonna love it, but I didn't know that I was gonna love it that much. Literally every single song on that album is amazing. I love it so much. It may not resonate with me lyrically that much because a lot of these songs are literally about like, you know, romantic relationships and stuff like that. But musically, I connected to it so much. It just has so many beautiful conventional melodies and beautiful harmonies, and at the same time progressive electronic production, and it's just like the ultimate masterpiece. I did not expect to love this album that much, but to this day I play this album and there's not a single song that I want to skip. And my favorite songs from that album are obviously Beautiful Ones, Walk Away, Magnificent, Chaperone, Something I Need to Know, Ready to Go, just like lots of them, pretty much all of them. And I mean, that's why this album deserves to be my second favorite album of the year. It's just incredible all around, a well-rounded album. I know lots of Hertz fans hate this album because, ooh, it's too different from what they used to do before, but you know what? People change, artists evolve, deal with it. You don't have to like it, but you don't have to be a bitch about it, you know? And now, before we go into the number 1, it is time for some honorable mentions because, like I said, there were just way too many albums that came out this year that were so good that I can't not mention them in this video. So first of all, the most recent one is Blue Lips, Ladywood Phase 2 by Tovlo. That was an incredible album, and while I didn't listen to it that much yet because it's a fairly recent album, and there have been lots of things going on lately, I feel like I owe it a mention here among my favorite albums of the year because conceptually, this was an amazing album. Probably alongside Melodrama, it's my favorite album in the conceptual sense. And also, it had some innovative electronic production, let me tell you. Like, the vocal production was incredible and innovative and new, and while it's not like anything groundbreaking, it still seems to utilize some techniques that I've never heard before. her, and that are really interesting. And it's actually an album that I'm really interested in analyzing like thoroughly in terms of production, and maybe I'll learn something new from it, so that's really exciting. Another thing that I can't not mention is of course Queen Elizabeth by Cupcake. This album I listened to quite a bit. Special shout out to my friend for introducing me to Cupcake in general, because as I keep saying, she's like my discovery of the year. I just love her songs, I love her flow, I love her witty lyrics. I think she's genuinely one of the most creative rappers out there currently, at least from the mainstream ones that I keep hearing, because I don't really listen to a lot of underground music in general. But Queen Elizabeth has a lot of bops, it's a really strong album, and I'm just really excited to see Cupcake being so successful, and I hope that she continues to rise to fame, because she totally deserves it in my opinion. And of course, another super underrated album that I have to mention is Younger Now by Miley Cyrus, because that was genuinely a cute album. I loved it. The song Rainbow Land from that album is one of my favorite songs of the year, as you probably know if you watch my top 25 songs of 2017 video. And overall, it's just a sweet album. It's very acoustic and very mellow, but I love the themes of it, and I just love Miley's evolution. I admire her, and I wholeheartedly loved both her edgy phase and this phase, whatever it may be, and whatever she may do afterwards, who knows. I just really believe in supporting artists and whatever they do, and I know that a lot of people ditched Miley just because like she's not doing the rap thing anymore, or like she's boring or whatever. And like I said a lot of times before, you don't have to like something, but you can still support people who make art, especially when it's harmless. And I just think Younger Now is a beautiful album, and it totally deserves a mention. At number 1, we have something that I totally did not expect as well. Evolve by Imagine Dragons! This, it was totally unexpected. I mean, I've enjoyed Imagine Dragons stuff before, but like, not to this extent. And I think when I first heard Believer, I wasn't that impressed as well. But then Thunder came along, and I was like, holy shit, that's good. And then they released Walking the Wire, a free single from their album, and by that point I think I had my reaction channel, so I reacted to it and I was like, holy shit, this is the best Imagine Dragons song that I've ever heard. And then it was followed by an album that stole my heart and broke my heart and put it back together and made it full and happy and inspired me to create. And that entire album is so good, both conceptually and musically and lyrically. It has so many good themes, and I don't know how the fans are feeling about the album, but for me personally, this is definitely the biggest surprise, the biggest discovery of the year. Well, it's not so much a discovery as just an unexpected surprise, because if anything, I thought that I was going to be, oh, Ed's new album is my favorite, or like Harry Styles' new album is my favorite, or Bleachers' new album is my favorite. And those were some great albums, don't get me wrong, but like, the amount of times that I listened through Evolve is insane. It probably tops every other album that I listened to this year. Well, maybe not exactly. I listened to Paul Simon's Graceland a lot, but that's not an album that came out this year. So yeah, Imagine Dragons took the top spot with their album Evolve for me this year. And even if I didn't mention an album or two here in this top 10 and even in the honorable mentions, don't fret, I just listened to a lot of stuff this year, and there's a lot of stuff I like, and there are just some albums that I didn't give enough listens to maybe fully get into them, even if I like them initially. But I mean, there's always next year, right? So yeah, it's getting really dark. I should really wrap this up now. That will be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to this reaction channel because I post new reaction videos every single day. I hope you enjoyed my year-end chart videos. I definitely enjoyed making them. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time. I love you guys. Bye!